In the charged arena of women's basketball, where rivalries can heat up in the blink of an eye, Caitlin Clark has been a player everyone talks about. Her name alone is enough to turn heads, with her unbreakable focus, sharp shooting skills, and almost too cool confidence. However, the recent incident where WNBA star Jonquel Jones stepped in to defend Clark stirred the pot like never before. The response was intense. An instant wave of outrage rolled through social media, news outlets, and fan discussions, reaching far beyond the bounds of the basketball court. But before we proceed further, don't forget to smash that like button and subscribe. The situation unfolded with almost cinematic intensity. Clark, known for her unfiltered style and on-court swagger, had been rubbing some fans the wrong way. Her gestures, pointed looks, and fierce determination often walked the line between confidence and, well, the kind of attitude that gets under opponents' skin. It's a quality that Clark has owned unapologetically, much to the delight of her fans and the dismay of her critics. This time, though, things went beyond the usual banter. Some began labeling Clark as a bully, an accusation that sparked immediate backlash and, predictably, fierce defenses from her supporters. Jonquel Jones, no stranger to the spotlight herself, entered the fray with a firm stance. Jones, a towering presence in the WNBA and a role model for younger athletes, stepped up to defend Clark, urging people to recognize the grit and self-assurance required to succeed at Clark's level. It was a move that few saw coming, but one that carried weight. In many ways, Jones' defense didn't just validate Clark's attitude. It shifted the entire narrative, pushing people to reconsider the labels so easily slapped on ambitious women in sports. Jones' intervention was less about sticking up for one player and more about challenging an outdated mentality toward women in sports, a message that resonated deeply and quickly. This wasn't the first time Caitlin Clark found herself in the crosshairs of public opinion. From her college years, Clark had set a different kind of standard, almost rewriting the script for what a basketball player, particularly a woman, could do and say. Her confidence and playful antagonism on the court weren't just tolerated. They became part of her charm. She would dribble with a smirk, pull up for shots from seemingly impossible distances, and react with a boldness that had fans cheering and opponents fuming. It was all part of the Caitlin Clark experience, a package deal that blended raw talent with a personality that, for better or worse, couldn't be ignored. But the stakes rose quickly with Jones's words in the spotlight. Jones's influence in the basketball community is hard to overstate, and her support for Clark wasn't taken lightly. When someone of her stature says, "Look, give her a break," it's a reminder that every player has a story that fans might not fully understand. She pointed out the pressures Clark faces, from handling fame at a young age to bearing the weight of public expectations, every time she steps onto the court. For Jones, Clark's confidence wasn't bullying. It was survival, a skill every top athlete has to master to stay relevant in a fiercely competitive field. The immediate reaction to Jones's defense of Clark was polarizing. Some applauded her for standing up, calling it a breath of fresh air in a sport where women are often told to tone it down or play nice. Others, however, saw it differently. They argued that Clark's antics crossed lines, her gestures too sharp, her demeanor bordering on disrespectful. Yet for every critic, there was a fan who argued that Clark was simply doing what male athletes had done for generations without being called bullies. It was a double standard, plain and simple, and Jones' defense put that standard under the microscope. Clark's reaction to the drama was characteristically cool. She didn't apologize or explain herself. It was as if she knew this was part of the game, a routine consequence of her unapologetic approach. Clark has always let her playing do the talking, and this time was no different. If she felt the sting of criticism, she didn't show it. In fact, this entire saga seemed to fuel her fire, pushing her to perform with even greater focus and intensity. It was like watching a pressure cooker, each game adding another layer to the tension, every performance a subtle reminder that Clark wasn't going to change for anyone. One of the most striking aspects of this story was the generational clash it highlighted. Younger fans seemed to rally around Clark, seeing her as a symbol of modern sports culture, a place where players don't have to fit a specific mold, where they can be brash, loud, and competitive without having to explain themselves. For them, Clark was a new kind of role model, someone who didn't just follow the rules but reshaped them to fit her own brand of basketball. On the other hand, older fans often viewed her demeanor as too much, her confidence misinterpreted as arrogance. This generational split underscored a deeper cultural shift happening within sports, a shift where athletes are challenging traditional ideas about respectability and professionalism. Jonquel Jones's role in all this extended beyond the immediate issue of Clark's on-court behavior. She ignited a discussion about the mental toughness required to compete at the highest levels. To Jones and many others, Clark's so-called arrogance was really just armor, a defense against the harsh scrutiny that female athletes face. Men in the same position are celebrated for their confidence, their aggression seen as part of the game, not as a personal failing. For women, it's often the opposite. The very qualities that lead to their success are dissected, criticized, and sometimes dismissed outright. Jones's defense of Clark wasn't just about one athlete. It was about reframing how society views women who dare to be bold. In a way, Clark's journey mirrors that of countless female athletes who have pushed boundaries and ruffled feathers in the process. Whether it's Serena Williams, Megan Rapinoe, or now Caitlin Clark, there's a pattern to the public reaction, a tendency to admire their talent but critique their personality. These athletes become lightning rods, facing both adoration and backlash. Clark's demeanor might be bold, even abrasive, but it's also undeniably captivating. Her unapologetic style speaks to a generation that values authenticity over tradition, a generation that sees her as a figure who embodies resilience and self-assuredness. What made Jones' intervention so powerful was her ability to bring perspective to an issue that had, until then, been shrouded in judgment. She reminded fans, critics, and fellow players alike that every athlete's journey is riddled with challenges, both visible and hidden. Jones pointed out that Clark's approach, however unconventional, was a part of her survival mechanism in a sport that often underappreciates its female stars. Her message struck a chord, sparking conversations about how society expects its female athletes to act, and, more importantly, how it judges them when they refuse to conform. The saga left a lasting impact on fans and analysts alike, pushing the conversation beyond the immediate question of whether Clark was a bully. Instead, it highlighted the broader issue of how ambition and confidence are perceived in women's sports. The outrage that initially surged on social media and in fan circles began to wane, replaced by a more nuanced discussion about respect, competition, and personality. People started to realize that perhaps Clark's demeanor wasn't an issue. It was a symbol of the challenges female athletes face in their quest to be seen as equals. Ultimately, this whole episode became about more than Clark's supposed attitude or Jones' defense. It was about changing the lens through which we view competitive women, reframing their aggression as passion, their confidence as strength. In standing up for Clark, Jones had tapped into a powerful narrative, one that resonated with athletes and fans alike, reminding everyone that the field of play is not a place for shrinking violets, but for those willing to bring their fullest, boldest selves. This story, with all its intensity and emotion, is a reminder of the power that sports have to shape conversations and break down stereotypes. Clark might be polarizing, but she is undeniably authentic, a trait that has earned her both critics and admirers. Jonquel Jones's support didn't just give Clark a reprieve. It also gave every fan, player, and critic a moment to consider how we talk about female athletes. The rage, the cheers, the sighs of relief, all of it played a part in painting a broader picture. One where athletes like Clark and Jones redefine what it means to be competitive, bold, and unapologetically themselves. As Clark continues her career, her impact will undoubtedly echo beyond the court, as each game, each gesture, and each challenge brings new layers to her evolving legacy. And with athletes like Jones in her corner, that legacy will likely be marked by more than just stats and scores. It will be a story of resilience, courage, and the power to defy expectations, all told through the high-stakes, high-speed language of basketball.